Good morning, everyone. My name is Nan Janke, and on behalf of the Parish Committee, I'd like to welcome you all to the service here at First Parish this morning. We have a little bit of a light turnout today at this three-day weekend and the start of winter break. So special thanks to all of you who've come out today, and best wishes to the rest of us who seem to be on vacation. A special welcome to any newcomers that we may have here today and people who are returning after a longish absence. It's always nice to see some new faces in the pews. We've had a lot of newcomers in the last year or so, and it's good for us to have you here because you bring good ideas and you keep us on our toes. We appreciate you a lot. If you have any questions about all of the things that we do here at First Parish, you can talk to me after the service. I'm usually sitting in the back of the sanctuary, or you can make your way downstairs to the newcomers table, which is in the meeting hall downstairs, and that is also where you will find the coffee. If you are eager for a conversation, pick up one of the red mugs from the coffee area, and somebody will come over and chat you up. A couple of reminders. Please silence your cell phones. Also, we need flowers for the service, for a couple of upcoming services. Not next week, but the first 3 Sundays in March. We could use some flowers. You don't have to wait for a particular anniversary or birthday or memorial service or anything like that to give flowers. Just give them. If you don't know how to go about doing that, you can talk to me or you can call Karen during the week and she will walk you through it. Now the bell rings. I guess we were a little early. Let's see. Last thing is, greet each other in the pews. Please say hello to your neighbors. And while you're at it, wave to the people who are online. All those folks on vacation, I'm sure. We have a guest minister in the pulpit today, the Reverend Laura Randall. They can see you from there. She has led services here for us before, but I will give you a brief bio in case you have forgotten about her. The Reverend Laura Randall is the affiliate community minister at the Unitarian Universalist Area Church in Sherburne. She is currently the director for congregation relations at the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, where she facilitates partnerships to strengthen the impact of the UU Service Committee and the social justice reach of UU communities. We will be sharing our offering plate with the UUSC during the service this morning. Before joining the UUSC, Reverend Laura's ministry included work in stewardship, hospice chaplaincy, and Alzheimer's support. Laura lives in Medford with her spouse and their 2 dogs. We now have an announcement from Lynn Trimby and Pat Sims.
Good morning. I'm Lynn Trimby.
And I'm Pat Sims.
And we are members of the membership team here at First Parish. And we hope that you have either seen a flyer about the newcomers' coffee this week or have seen the announcement in the e-blast announcing the event, which is when, Pat?
It's next Sunday, February 22nd, in the sunroom, right after the service. And Lynn, I don't know if you know this or not, but I don't like coffee. So I'm just pleased to say that there will be tea too. So, well, why don't you explain what Newcomers Coffee is all about?
And goodies, I think there'll be
Oh, goodies, lots of goodies.
You know, as Nan said, we've had a number of new people visiting church. And so this Newcomers Coffee is all about welcoming our newcomers and our visitors so that they feel at home here at First Parish. We've had a number of people come interested in finding out more about us. Several people have told us they find the sermons of interest to them, and others feel that right now, with all that is going on in the world, they're searching for a sense of belonging and community and just need to connect with others that they share values with.
This is a great opportunity for our newcomers to be together, to get to know each other, to have conversations, and to ask questions.
And we don't want to forget there will be childcare available.
And one final thing, we also invite those of you who've been coming to First Parish for years. It's an opportunity for you to stop by and to meet our newcomers and introduce yourselves.
So hope to see you all
Next Sunday.
Next Sunday.
I now invite Helen Green to come forward to light our chalice.
At times, our own light goes out and is rekindled by a spark from another person. Each of us has cause to think with deep gratitude of those who have lighted the flame within us. Please join me as I light the chalice and are speaking our covenant.
Our service will now begin.
Thank you, choir. That was beautiful. Our opening words this morning are from the Reverend Dr. Rebecca Savage. Welcome to this sacred space. Welcome to worship. Welcome to those of you who are joyful and excited for this day. Welcome to you who are weary and in need of rest. Welcome to you who are seeking deeper meaning and purpose in the infinite expanse of life. Today we come with full hearts and open spirits to be open to the possibility that what we receive here will inspire us to mend our tender spirits, nourish our waning hearts, and give us enough wisdom and energy to embody resilience with every breath. Let us worship together. I invite you to rise in body or in spirit as we sing our opening hymn, number 108 in the gray hymnal, My Life Flows On in Endless Song. It's 108. please be seated. And I'd like to welcome my colleague, our ministerial field education intern from Harvard Divinity School this year, Massey Williams.
Hello, everyone. My name is Massey. I also work at the UUSC, and at the UUSC, we talk a lot about what it means to be in solidarity with people, especially people who have wildly different lives than ours. And so today I brought a story that talks a little bit about solidarity. And this story is about a panda bear named Taishan. Now, Taishan and his friends at school were learning about another kind of panda bear, another kind of bear, polar bears, who live very far away in a place called the Arctic. Taishan and his friends wanted to meet these polar bears, but it was upsetting for them to learn that the sea ice that the polar bears needed to be able to live and hunt their food was melting due to climate change. The panda bears were familiar with the way that climate change was hurting their own bamboo forest high in the mountains of China. But the plight of the polar bears sounded much more extreme to them. Polar bears swimming beyond exhaustion and starving was awful to imagine. So Taishan and his friends decided that they had to do something. They spent half the school year raising money to buy food and supplies to take to the Arctic to help the polar bears. They learned how to make connections, organize, keep track of things, and raise money. And finally, when the school year ended, they had raised enough funds for a delegation from their class to take an enormous quantity of bamboo and several ice makers to the Arctic to help the polar bears. So Taishan set off with 5 of his classmates on this voyage. It was tremendously exciting to be traveling to someplace so far away from their own homes and their own ways of life. It took a long time, and the trip was uncomfortable. And when they arrived in the Arctic, they found that they were not alone. Other animals from all over the world were also arriving to help the polar bears. Foxes, leopards, turtles, you name it. The turtles were weaving platforms that they hoped would be able to hold the polar bears while they hunted. The leopards were creating harpoons that they hoped would help the polar bears catch seals farther from the remaining sea ice. The foxes were building compounds of these modular houses where they hoped the polar bears could live together on some of the more substantial sheets of sea ice. And everyone had brought some kind of food to share. There were piles and piles of things all around that the animals had brought and hoped would be helpful. The dazed panda delegation looked at their enormous pile of bamboo and their ice makers, and they weren't sure what to do next. A large polar bear walked by and rolled his eyes at them. A mother bear with 2 cubs steered her young ones in a wide path around the pandas, and they started to feel awkward and embarrassed. It was sinking in quickly that what they thought would be helpful to the polar bears in the Arctic might not actually be helpful after all. A smaller polar bear, not quite full grown, noticed Taishan and his friends. She hadn't seen other bears before and was curious. So this polar bear came over and introduced herself. She said, "Hi, I'm Anoki." And Taishan and his friends introduced themselves and said, "We've come a long way with things we want to offer to you and the other polar bears. But we're upset by what's happening to you, and we're beginning to think that what we had thought would be helpful when we were making plans with our class at school isn't so helpful after all." Anoki laughed long and loud when she learned that the enormous pile of bamboo was something to eat. But her laughter wasn't unkind. She explained that polar bears eat seals and other mammals from the sea. Taishan explained that in the mountains of China, panda bears eat bamboo. No one even mentioned the ice makers, because the size of sea ice was something altogether bigger than what Taishan had been able to imagine, and clearly the ice makers would be no use at all. Anoki and Taishan talked for a while until Anoki asked Taishan and his friends if they would like to come home to her den and meet her mother. They agreed, so they walked a long, long way over the sheet of ice to Anoki's home. And after some initial shock and uncertainty on Anoki's mother's part, she welcomed the panda bears into her den. The bears talked for a long time. Anoki and her mother shared more about the melting sea ice and what life was like for the polar bears. And Taishan and his friends shared about life in the mountains of China and how their forests were getting smaller and smaller and their bamboo was struggling to grow with the change in the climate. When Anoki's mother told them about the platforms that the turtles were building, they laughed together about the impossibility of one of those structures holding a full-grown polar bear hunting. When Anoki told them about the compounds of modular houses that the foxes were building, the panda bears agreed right away that it was absurd. Polar bears, like panda bears, were mostly solitary creatures when they were full grown, so they understood each other easily on that one. The panda bears then understood that their own offerings were cute and a little bit pathetic. But Anoki could also sense their genuine desire to be of help. And it had occurred to Anoki in recent months that it would be easier for all of the polar bears if they could organize themselves to use the existing sea ice more efficiently and equitably. So she had a lot of questions for the pandas about how they made connections, organized in their communities, kept track of things, and made money. The pandas shared what they had learned and were glad their experiences could be helpful to Anoki and her mother. As they talked into the night, they also understood more and more deeply how climate change was harming both the pandas and the polar bears, and that working together against climate change in their own places might help the polar bears, even though that they were far away from each other. The next day, Taishan and his friends said warm goodbyes to Anoki and her mother, and they agreed to stay in touch. The panda bears headed back the way they had come, stopping to pick up their enormous pile of bamboo and their ice makers. They had a lot to tell their class back home about what they had learned about true solidarity, that it emerges from real relationships with those directly affected by an issue, listening to their knowledge and their wisdom, working to meet the needs that they identify, and learning to set aside one's own assumptions about what must be most helpful, and being with others in a shared struggle. Whenever I think about this story of what Taishan and his friends had learned, I think about, it reminds me of the way that UUSC partners with small groups of people all over the world and in the US who are working on things like climate change and advocating for migrants, defending democracy, and protecting the human rights of all people. UUSC starts by building relationships and listening to what their partners say about what they need. UUSC also funnels money from Unitarian Universalists all over the country to their partners, and they provide other kinds of assistance and support when they're asked to do so, like help with strategy, communications, or making connections with others doing the same kind of work. In this way, UUSC puts UU values to action in the world. Thank you for listening to this story, and I now invite the choir to sing our children and teachers off to their Seek programming.
We are so grateful that the offering plate this morning will be shared with UUSC. The Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, or UUSC, is an international human rights organization grounded in Unitarian Universalism that has been a powerful force for justice since its founding in 1940 in response to the rise of Nazism. We like to say that we've been defying Nazis since 1940. UUSC's work is based on a partnership model that centers the experience and leadership of the people who are most impacted by injustice. This partnership includes support of some of the scrappiest, most creative, and courageous groups of people that you can imagine who are working for justice, often under very dangerous conditions. We work with over 70 grassroots organizations in 25 countries, including the United States. Our partners work in the areas of migrant justice, climate justice, democracy and civil liberties, and humanitarian crisis response. And because we work with local grassroots organizations, our partners are often addressing many of these issues at once as the effects of climate change spur humanitarian crises, which impacts migration, which in turn often has repercussions for civil liberties. Everything is connected. And because UUSC endeavors to accompany our partners for the long term, we often work with them as the needs of their communities shift. For instance, we've been working with persecuted minorities in Burma or Myanmar for nearly 30 years. And this meant that UUSC was one of the few international organizations that was able to get resources into the country following the military coup in 2021 and after they experienced a devastating earthquake in March of last year. Relationship is at the center of everything we do at UUSC. And we're able to do everything that we do because people like you make it possible with financial support. UUSC is a member-supported independent organization. We receive no funding from the UUA. We rely on the generosity of people of faith and conscience like you. Currently, 13% of this congregation are members of UUSC, and we thank you so very much. And I'm wondering if we could go higher than 13%. A gift of any amount makes you a UUSC member. If you are interested in becoming a UUSC member, or you would like the gift that you are putting in the collection plate today to count towards becoming a UUSC member, please see me following the service and we can make that happen. Our members receive periodic updates on the important work our partners are doing around the world with your support, as well as invitations to take action on behalf of migrant justice, climate justice, and civil liberty defense. Instructions on how to give today can be found in your order of service. It's right on the back, or they'll be on your screen if you're joining us remotely. Gifts of $150 or more from individuals are eligible to be matched dollar for dollar by a generous grant from the UU congregation at Shelter Rock. We thank you for your generosity and your commitment to human rights and global solidarity in this critical time. We couldn't do it without you.
Good morning. I'm Debbie Levins, a lay minister for this congregation. This is the time in our service that we set aside to acknowledge the joys and sorrows that we all hold. In our sharing and our witness, we affirm our covenant to care for one another. And now, as we face the uncertainty of the road ahead in our country and throughout the world, we light our vigil candle in solidarity with all those living in fear, insecurity of food, and other economic challenges. May the love which abides in our community offer hope, strength, and peace in the days to come. If you have a personal joy or sorrow that you'd like to share, please feel welcome to come forward, or you can raise your hand and I will bring you the mic. If you're online, you can type your joys and sorrows into the chat and I will read them. For those joys and sorrows not spoken, may we hold in our hearts those who have spoken, those they've named, and those that we hold in silence. May it be so.
Our reading today is from Robin Wall Kimmerer. Kimmerer is a scientist, professor, mother, and member of the citizen Potawatomi Nation. In her book, The Serviceberry, Abundance and Reciprocity in the Natural World, Kimmerer shares the story of linguist Daniel Everett, who is learning from a hunter-gatherer community in Brazil. Kimmerer writes, he observes that a hunter had brought home a sizable kill, far too much to be eaten by his family. The researcher asked how he would store the excess. Smoking and drying technologies were well known. Storing was possible. The hunter was puzzled by the question. Store the meat? Why would he do that? Instead, he sent out an invitation to a feast, and soon the neighboring families were gathered around his fire until every last morsel was consumed. This seemed like maladaptive behavior to the anthropologist, who asked again, given the uncertainty of meat in the forest, why didn't the hunter store the meat for himself? Which is what the economic system of his home culture would predict. Store my meat? I store my meat in the belly of my brother, replied the hunter. I feel a great debt to this unnamed teacher for these words. There beats the heart of gift economies, an antecedent alternative to market economies. Another way of organizing ourselves to sustain life. In a gift economy, wealth is understood as having enough to share, and the practice for dealing with abundance is to give it away. In fact, status is determined not by how much one accumulates, but by how much one gives away. The currency in a gift economy is relationship, which is expressed as gratitude, as interdependence, and the ongoing cycles of reciprocity. A gift economy nurtures the community bones that enhance mutual well-being. The economic unit is we rather than I, as all flourishing is mutual.
It's so good to be with you again this morning, First Parish Wayland. I'm grateful for the invitation to join you and have this opportunity to share with you some of the work that UUSC is doing with our grassroots partners around the world with your generous support and commitment to social justice. As I mentioned during the introduction to our offering, our partners work in the areas of migrant justice, climate justice, democracy and civil liberties, and humanitarian crisis response. In the nearly 7 years that I've been working with UUSC, I've had the privilege of meeting many of these partners and hearing their stories firsthand of devastation, resilience, imagination, and hope. Our Globals partners show us again and again that the oppressive systems that operate in our world are not inevitable. Other ways of being, ones that center community care, accountability, and global solidarity, are possible. And they come when enough people choose to act from a place of love rather than fear. When small acts of courage, imagination, and gratitude build upon each other. I've been thinking a lot about the words that Massey shared from Robin Wall Kimmerer's The Serviceberry. In the book, Kimmerer uses the example of the serviceberry bush to explore the abundance inherent in the gift economies that proliferate in the natural world. The serviceberry offers its fruit lavishly to humans, to deer, to birds, to insects, to the earth, because doing so ensures the health of the ecosystem in which it lives. The plant can only thrive and propagate through sharing its own abundance with the world around it. All flourishing is mutual. I've been thinking about these words now in this particular season of immense cruelty and manufactured scarcity in our world. We are witnessing our neighbors abducted from their homes, from our courtrooms, and off of our streets. Our communities, children, elders, and so many others are being deprived of food and shelter and medical care. Those with little to begin with are being forced to try to survive with even less so that the wealthiest can be allowed to hoard still more. It's maddening, isn't it? To witness such destruction and malice, all while knowing it doesn't have to be this way, while believing that survival is not a zero-sum game, while rejecting the worldview that says that everything and everyone is ultimately a commodity, to be sold, used, exploited, and discarded in service of profit and the power that profit brings. A model that ranks all of creation as mine or not mine, or perhaps not mine yet. For those of us with deep wells of empathy and strong ethical convictions, it is literally painful to witness the harms being inflicted all around us. We can use this pain as an excuse to look away, or, as many of us are doing, we can use it as an incitement to action. When we view our world, our fellow humans, our very existence as the gifts they are, as opposed to resources we might control or discard according to our whims, gratitude becomes the center of our lives. If everything is a gift, then the natural response is gratitude. Kimmerer calls this a gift economy. In a gift economy, she writes, the currency in circulation is gratitude and connection rather than goods or money. A gift economy includes a system of social and moral agreements for indirect reciprocity rather than direct exchange. So a hunter who shared the feast with you today could well anticipate that you would share from a full fish net or offer your labor in repairing a boat in the future. The prosperity of the community grows from the flow of relationships, not the accumulation of goods. When the natural world is understood as a gift instead of private property, there are ethical constraints on the accumulation of abundance that is not yours to own. Gifts are not meant to be hoarded and thus made scarce for others, but given away, which generates sufficiency for all. In a gift economy, wealth is understood as having enough to share, and the practice for dealing with abundance is to give it away. Our UUSC partners model this idea of a gift economy in so many ways. My colleague at UUSC, Myra Dagopal, recently visited some of our partners in Ukraine, and I'd like to share with you Myra's reflection from her journey there because it speaks to the way that UUSC prioritizes relationships in systemic change and the ways our partners continually inspire transformation and hope in ways that ripple out and intersect. Myra said, "My most challenging day came when I encountered Ukraine's largely invisible Roma community. 14,000 people facing systemic discrimination that predates the war. Here, families live next to garbage dumps, while children with brilliant minds are denied education and skilled workers are barred from employment, all because of their ethnicity. Yet even in the face of such injustice, I found remarkable innovation. Young Roma women started a beauty business, traveling to clients in their homes when they weren't welcomed in traditional salons. Women gathered around sewing machines, creating not just clothing, but economic independence." Myra continues, "What gives me hope is how achievable meaningful change really is. For less than $12,000, we could establish a sewing enterprise transforming dozens of women's economic prospects. For the cost of a single conference, we could create an educational center serving 25 Roma children currently denied schooling. These aren't just donations, they're investments in systemically suppressed human potential. And the return isn't just economic. It's the reclamation of dignity and the creation of opportunity pathways that were never supposed to exist. UUSC's seed grants are strategic investments designed to make these transformative impacts. I returned from Ukraine connected to profound possibility, not naive optimism, but hard-won knowledge that committed people can create islands of hope that eventually become continents of change. Ukrainian civil society demonstrates that ordinary people can create extraordinary change when they refuse to believe that suffering is inevitable. They're not waiting for permission or perfect conditions. They're creating the change they want to see, one person, one project, one act of courage at a time. We often feel overwhelmed by the scale of global problems, but Ukraine taught me differently. Transformation happens through small acts of courage sustained over time, by people who refuse to accept that the way things are is the way they must be. And that, more than any headline, is what hope looks like in practice." UUSC Director of Advocacy, Solote Soko, recently attended the Pacific Rising convening in Fiji, the third such gathering of community-based organizations from the Pacific. This convening was made possible by UUSC and the Climate Justice Resilience Fund. The agenda focused on using culturally appropriate decolonial processes that integrate inclusive storytelling to share learnings of gender and intersectionality, experiences and challenges around grant distribution, and determining next steps in leveraging global visibility and advocacy. Solote left the Pacific Rising convening directly to New York City to attend the UN General Assembly's Climate Week events. Reflecting on the shift of atmosphere between the two events, she wrote, "Our Pacific partners' diligent hope fuels their innovative solutions. Hope supports their efforts to transform systems. In contrast, members of the UN and participants in New York Climate Week broadly exhibited panicked hopelessness that drastically restricts their ability to understand and enact meaningful solutions. Global grassroots leaders were notably missing from the New York events, limiting the relevance effectiveness, and creativity of the proceedings. The people most impacted by the climate crisis aren't afforded the luxury of hopelessness. They must continue to cultivate the belief that through collective action, a different future is possible. Grassroots leaders know that the future depends upon our collaboration, our faith, and our creativity. Again, our partners are showing us what hope looks like in practice. One of UUSC's long-standing partners in El Salvador is Cristocel. Cristocel has a long history of defending victims of government abuse through legal advocacy and strategic litigation, as well as documenting abuses through forensic research and the preserving of historical memory. In May of 2025, Cristocel's chief legal officer for their anti-corruption unit, Ruth Lopez, was abducted by government forces in her home and disappeared. She's now a political prisoner without any contact with her family or colleagues. Her health and her safety remain unknown. Following Ruth's arrest, the rest of the Cristocel staff was forced to flee their offices in San Salvador and move across the border to Guatemala. Noah Bullock, executive director of Cristocel, told us that even with this level of repression, there is resistance. He said, "There's no guarantee that tomorrow everything will change, but the actions we take today contribute to a longer process, even if we don't see the outcomes in our lifetime. Even if we never enjoy the results of our advocacy, we have a historic responsibility to push forward." Here in the United States, we are witnessing what hope looks like in practice as our siblings in Minnesota resist the violent federal occupation in their cities. When the call came for interfaith partnerships in Minneapolis at the end of January for clergy to come and bear witness to what was happening there, UUSC was able to respond within hours to supply grants to faith leaders, enabling them to answer this call. UUSC funded 68 Unitarian Universalist ministers to participate in this action, where they joined more than 600 other faith leaders. And I know that your minister, Reverend Lisa Perry Wood, was one of these ministers as well. And that's incredible. UUSC was able to meet this need without hesitation because our foundations in deep relationships with grassroots leaders and because of the steadfast generosity of UUSC members. Our siblings in Minnesota are showing all of us what it means to show up for our neighbors, to find your lane and get to work, to organize creatively and relentlessly. There is a role for everyone in the resistance. We are showing everyone that we are shaping a new world that values people over profit and knows that communities are strong because of their diversity and not in spite of it. They're showing us again and again that all flourishing is mutual and that we will survive together or not at all. Our Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, our global partners, this congregation, every mutual aid and global solidarity effort, each food pantry, voting drive, costumed ICE facility protest, community school escorts, and pro-democracy rallies, all of these actions are what hope looks like in practice. These are actions that we take not because we are guaranteed that tomorrow everything will change, but because we have a responsibility to push forward. Our justice-loving ancestors are showing us the way. Our global partners in the movement for human rights and climate justice are showing us the way. Our Unitarian Universalist values are showing us the way. Together, we will mourn and resist, disrupt and heal, weep, sing, dance, and imagine. We will store our wealth in the bellies of our siblings, sharing abundantly so that all may live, planting seeds of justice wherever we are. Together, we will persevere because all flourishing is mutual. I want to lift you up, First Parish in Wayland, for the vital role that you play in this larger story of global solidarity, resistance to oppression, and modeling what hope looks like in practice. This congregation is deeply committed, we heard it here today, deeply committed both locally and beyond to the work of caring for our neighbors, be they down the street or across the globe. Transformation happens through small acts of courage, sustained over time by people who refuse to accept that the way things are is the way they must be. Your support of UUSC is one of these acts, sustained over time, embodying gratitude and practicing hope. Together, along with our grassroots partners and justice seekers the world over, we are nurturing a new world into being. Thank you, friends. I'm glad that we're in this work together. Blessed be, and amen. Thank you. Let's sing again. I invite you to rise in body or in spirit as we sing our closing hymn. It's 1028 in the Teal hymnal, Fire of Commitment. It's 1028 in the Teal hymnal. I offer this blessing by John Daniel. Among other wonders of our lives, we are alive with one another. We live here in the light of this unlikely world that isn't ours for long. May we spend generously the time we are given. May we enact our responsibilities as thoroughly as we enjoy our pleasures. May we see with clarity. May we seek a vision that serves all beings. May we honor the mystery surpassing our sight. And may we hold in our hands the gift of good work and bear it forth whole, as we are borne forth by a power we praise to this one earth, this homeland of all we love. Amen, and blessed be.